All right. So what's the experience been like at NILF 2016 for you so far?
Sure, it's been great. It's my first time here. I hadn't been across for this before, and it's been really wonderful. Lots and lots of people. All of the sessions have been really engaging. The conversations have been good. I mean, the caliber of speakers are fantastic, and the rooms have been packed, and everyone I've been in has been standing room only. And you know, as a speaker, the really nice thing is, like I say, they're all very engaged. There's always lots of questions to be asked, and I think it's a really nice blend of, you know, it's high tech. We've got these bands on; they're tracking where we're going, but at the same time, there's personal touch as well. I think the blend of those two things is great. It's been fun.
Is there a session you're particularly looking forward to? Day and a half left here in NILF 2016. Anything you're particularly looking forward to?
Yeah, so I came over from New York and I've been here all week, so unfortunately in order to make it back for my kids' soccer games on the weekends, I've got to leave tonight. But I'll tell you instead about a great session that I went to. James McQuivey, an analyst with a competitive analyst firm, but he's written a number of books, and so I was anxious to hear him speak, and he talked about the adoption of transforming and disrupting technologies in the customer relationship area. So that was it was a pretty good talk, really engaged talk, packed room again, so nice.
Now, you briefly mentioned the disruption. That is, of course, one of the key themes this year at NILF 2016. If I could ask you to break it down and just sum it all up, what does disruption mean? Yeah,
lots of definitions for disruption. I think the thing that I focus on when you think about disruption is essentially it's the removal of the dependence on physicality of things. So when I say that, I mean less dependence on people, less dependence on being in proximity to your actual customer, so geography starts to go away, and it's also cheaper. So if you think about an Uber, which is like one of the epitome examples of disruption, there's many of them, but they were able to remove a dependence on physical cabs and physical drivers, which before was a limiting factor for them, and they were able to take away, and how could they basically get more of those? How could they basically reach all of their customers wherever they were? Well, they were able to solve that too, so they're no longer limited by geography. Before, a typical cab company was only in one particular city, right? And then they were able to do that with an economic underpinning that was just cheaper, lower cost, and then of course they use things like digital and apps and that sort of stuff to be able to bring it to the people. But I think it really is the removal of the dependence on physicality.
Right. Now you talked about some success stories there. Do you think there's a sector or an industry that is now vulnerable to disruption and could see some serious disruption in the next year or two?
Yeah, boy, oh boy. You know, when you say, I guess let's first talk about kind of what are the characteristics of a company or an industry that makes them makes them likely to be disrupted. I think there has to be an interest from an audience, first of all, like in the cab industry, right? And they have to be doing things fairly, I think, inefficiently as it is versus, and there's opportunity there. I think one area where you might have that is in utilities. There's an awful lot of, you know, new flavor of the day, whether it's, you know, you think about the new things that are on the wall and the way that Internet of Things can allow folks to monitor what's going on in your home, and things like something like utilities, typically big, huge expense, very, very inefficient processes, expensive for people. Everybody's paying utility bills. How can you decrease that, which would be in the interest of all buyers, and use, you know, new capabilities like the Internet of Things to essentially really streamline and disrupt that industry? I think utilities is probably one of the close coming industries that's ripe for disruption.
All right. Now another major talking point over the next these past 2 days has been automation. Now, of course, currently you're being interviewed by a robot, essentially. But do you think there's a day where automation will go far enough, where computers and robots can essentially do all the work and the rest of us can be on vacation 24/7?
So they've tried that, and essentially that's what IVR was. IVR had this idea that let's have a computer talk to everybody when they call in, and we won't have to have the need for people to answer the phone anymore.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for taking the time.
No, thanks for having me. And so can we do a virtual handshake then?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right, here we go.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.